My message today is on how should a Christian man or woman act in public. So if you have a Bible, please turn to Micah 6:8, where it says, "A man should do justice, love, kindness, because the Lord requires of you." And Colossians 3:12 says, "Put on hearts of compassion, kindness, meekness, and patience." So what do these things mean? Like, a man should do justice. I mean, that doesn't mean go out, take revenge and stuff like that. It means, like, you see something wrong, stop it. Love, obviously. Kindness, obviously. Don't be a jerk to everyone. Meekness, that means, like, being strong and trying, like, controlling yourself. That doesn't mean you go out and, like, try and rip someone's head off every time someone says something wrong to you. Like, we have three or four guys in here that could probably rip your head off right now if they wanted to, but they don't, because they know how to control it. Where's it say? Matthew 5:16 says, "Shine your light and let others see what your good works can do, and give glory to our Father in heaven." So the reason we need to do these things is obviously it's not right, and it's also the Lord's work. And, like, when you're doing all these things, when you're controlling yourself, when you're not ripping people's heads off, when you're not making inappropriate jokes at the wrong time, you're doing the Lord's work. You're spreading his word. You're showing what a good Christian man should act like. Galatians 5:22 says, "Gentleness and self-control. There's no laws against these." Basically, just control yourself in public. Like I said, don't go out. Control your lustfulness. Don't, like, if you see the right time for an inappropriate joke, when it's the wrong time, don't do it. But don't worry, because Ecclesiastes 3:1-5 says there's a time for everything under the sun. So you can there's still a time to rip people's heads off. There's still a time to have lust. There's still a time to laugh, make jokes. But you need to know when to do it. You need to know the right time. Don't go out having sex with everyone. Don't go out making jokes at the wrong time. Lastly, Philippians 2:14 says, "Do all things without grumbling or disputing." Don't go out complaining about everything. Be happy with what you have. Like, even if you're not happy, you don't got to go grumble about it. You don't got to tell everyone. The only thing is about these things is you need to know when to control it. My dad over here, Mr. Nathan. If you know him, you know they make all kinds of jokes whenever we're not in church and stuff. But they know when to do it. They know the right time. They don't sit here and make them while I'm doing this. They don't talk about lustful things. They don't talk about inappropriate things. They know when to control it.
Okay, my lesson is on how to glorify God with your works. I'm going to start off with Colossians 3:17, and it says, "And whenever you do, in word or in deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him." Jesus is good, so if we follow him and do what he says, we will do good for the Lord. Paul the Apostle is a perfect example. He didn't trust God or like God in any way at first, but he killed people because they believed in God. And on his way to Damascus, a light from heaven appeared and suddenly flashed around him. When Saul stood up, he couldn't see. There was a man, a disciple. And the man laid his hands on Saul and said, "The Lord has sent me to regain your sight." And the man did. Saul believed in the Lord and did what God said. Now in Colossians, when it says in deed, it means in your doing. So in your doing, do it for the Lord. Colossians 3:23 says, "Whatever you do, do it from the heart, as something done for the Lord and not for the people." What this means is do something for God and not out of ego. Do it for the glory of God and not from peer pressure. Do it if you were asked by the Lord himself and not from your friends. 1 Timothy 6:8-9 says, If we have food and clothing, we will be content with these. But those who want to be rich fall into temptation, a trap which plunges people into ruin and destruction. This is talking about being thankful for what you have and don't be greedy. Proverbs 10:4 says, "Idle hands make one poor, but diligent hands bring riches." This reminds me of when I was grounded, I had to dig a perimeter of a rectangle, and I slacked off. But the days I worked, I got more done than the days I didn't. So when I heard this verse, the first thing that came to me was digging. So what I think this means is if you slack off, you won't get anything done. But if you work hard, you will get things done. Nathanians 1:1 says, "If you pray for a hole, God won't give it to you. He will provide a shovel." Proverbs 16:3 says, "Commit your activities to the Lord, and plans will be established." What does this mean? If you have a big plan, it is for the Lord, but it won't be able to happen, God will make it happen. Like if you pray for someone, but you only had one chance to do it, God will make another chance so you can pray for that man. Proverbs 16:7 says, "When a person's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies at peace with him." This means if you please the Lord, another person will respect you more. John 9:4 says, "We must do the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work." I read this quite a lot, actually. I was stuck on this one for a while. And I read this a lot trying to understand this, but then it hit me. This means do work while you still can, or do what God has sent you to do because when the time comes, you won't be able to tell the good news. Before night, which it says, John 9:4, "We must do the works of him who sent me while it is coming day. Night is coming." Night represents death because in some parts of the Bible, sleeping is death. And that's it.
Okay, so I'm going to be teaching on how you use your gift of strength in a way that pleases God. Okay. So I'm just going to start this off with a verse. 1 Kings 6:2-3. "The temple that King Solomon built for the Lord was 60 cubits long, 20 wide, and 30 high. The portico at the main hall of the temple extended the width of the temple, that is 20 cubits, and projected 10 cubits from the front of the temple." And do y'all know how big a cubit is? Well, it's about 1.5 feet. So that's a pretty big temple, and you got to think, not many cranes back then. So it was all done through physical labor. So yeah, and just an exact measurement of it is 90 feet long, 45 tall, and 30 wide, which is a pretty big temple. So that's one way he used his strength to serve God. Another example is in Judges 15:14-15. As he approached Lehi, the Philistines came toward him shouting. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him. The ropes on his arms became like charred flax, and the bindings dropped from his hands. Finding a fresh jawbone of a donkey, he grabbed it and struck down 1,000 men. So, for anyone who doesn't know the story of Samson, basically the Philistines were the enemies of God's people, and they were taking him as basically like a peace offering. So he used his strength to defend God's people. And we all know Noah, right? He built the ark. That's a pretty big ark. And like I said, not many cranes. So basically, the way I think we are called to use our strength is not through ways of the flesh, like desires, like what we want. Like, if I just wanted to, like he said, go out and kill someone, that would not be of God, that would be of flesh. But if I wanted to defend someone, and like I felt a calling to, like not flesh calling, but God calling, that would be one of the right ways to. So that's really it.
My lessons about what God gives you when you ask for patience. Let's talk about patience. I've done a couple of previous lessons that were about righteous anger and then one about patience. And I preached one of them. I taught one of them, but only to the youth. And then the other one I didn't teach. But I'm sure most of you have used it, whether on family or friends. But the topic I'm going over is what God gives you when you ask for patience. If you have a Bible, please turn to James 1:2-4. Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. God gives you opportunities. What good would a gift be if you got a gift but nowhere to use it? I'm going to quote some Athenians here, which actually, he stole my joke, okay? If you pray for a hole, God does not magically make a hole, but he makes sure you have a shovel. He'll give you materials and opportunities. Colossians 1:10 says, then the way you live, aka how you respond to difficulty and tests, will always honor and please the Lord. Your lives will produce every kind of good fruit, including patience. You will grow as you learn to know God better and better. God can also strengthen you for these situations, as it says in the next verse. We also pray you will be strengthened with all his glorious power, so you will have all the endurance and patience you need. May you be filled with joy. You never work alone. God's going to help you. He wouldn't strand you on an island and just get to work. If you have to fix something, your employer's going to make sure you have tools. Thank you for listening. I think I have extra time, so any questions? What?
What are some ways that what's an example of a way patience might come to you, other than the shovel thing? Like as a person?
Siblings?
Hello. I am standing. Mine's a little short too, but so. I'm not on my tippy toes. My title is Who's Acceptable and Perfect. More than just someone daring you to do something dumb. Most of the time, it doesn't feel like pressure, it feels like fitting in. Here's the truth. When we let others shape our values, choices, and identity, we give them power that they were never meant to have. The word is loud about who you should be and how you should act and what you should want, but God whispers something different. Jesus didn't die so we could live copy and paste lives of the world's template. He died so we could live set apart, bold, and free. And sometimes being free means standing alone. Ask yourself these questions. Do I change how I talk or act depending on who's around? Do I stay silent when I should speak truth? Do I compromise to be liked? You weren't called to blend in. You were called to shine. Pressure doesn't have to break you. It can shape you. Just make sure it's God doing the shaping. Galatians 1:10 says, "For am I now seeking the approval of man or of God, or am I trying to please man? If I were still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ." And that's all I have. Any questions?
As a preteen or teenager, how do you deal with peer pressures? Like, who would you go to ask for help in situations like that?
Like, if someone was, like it said, it's not about, like, daring you, but it's more like fitting in. So, like, but since I know that it wouldn't be fitting in, I'd probably ask, like, go to a teacher or parents or something that these kids are trying to, like, pressure me to do something and that I don't want to do it.
So is it harder to please God or to please friends?
I don't know.
In my experiences, I think it's harder to please friends because their opinions are always changing, while God stays the same. God doesn't change. He knows what he wants, and, you know.
Anybody have questions about any of our lessons?
So, Cheyenne, I guess you're just going to get all the questions today. But I think especially when you're a girl in middle school, it can be really difficult because there's a lot of subtlety of things that girls can subtly kind of exclude other girls. Have you had to deal with that? And if so, how?
I don't think, no, not really, because sometimes if girls, like, start to be rude, I normally just stop talking to them or tell them that I don't want to be friends with them because, I mean, like, well, then yes. I'll just walk away from it and tell them that if they're not going to include me, then just, I don't want to be your friend anymore, I guess.
The mic. Richard, do you have a question too? Okay. Wyatt, is there a situation in which you had to use your strength or tried to use your strength for God?
I do not think so, and if there was, I do not remember it.
So I don't really have a question as much as something I just wanted to say. I think y'all did an amazing job today. And the reason I say that is because it's not easy to stand up here in front of everybody and teach a lesson. It's really not. Your nerves hit you and it gets, even though you're planned out and everything is ready, it can be very difficult. So I want to thank y'all for that because it is absolutely amazing to have youth willing to get up here and teach lessons when it's not easy.
So, how is it that your siblings are an example patience.
So, basically, the way I interpreted what Malachi asked is opportunities for patience. As in, generally rude, and then I just tried to be patient, and then that's exercising patience.
You spilled that.
Okay, Joseph, this one's for you. So, are you supposed to glorify God only when you want to or all the time? In other words, like, can you do it at school with your schoolwork, at home with your chores, in public by helping other people? What is that thought to you?
You can really glorify God anywhere. You can do it on your homework. There was one time when I went to Bailey, I drew on the table, and then I started getting other people to draw Christian stuff, and then my whole table was filled with Christian stuff. And so you can always glorify God in the bad thing, in the hard times, the good times, anywhere.
Also, another thing my dad told me was that if you want to glorify God in the work that you do, like you say you're a shoe store owner, you're not going to put, I mean, you could if you want, but you don't have to put crosses on every single shoe you have. The way you glorify God in your work is you do the best you can, and you do, like, don't do half work. Like, do it to your fullest you can all the time.
I get in public, what you could do is at the shoe store, if you see someone struggling to get something, you can help them, and that would glorify God because you are helping someone out of courtesy.
Malachi, how do you learn? So, well, like what we talked about, and obviously I know what you're talking about, time and place, everything under the sun, which anything made by God in and of itself isn't evil, right? The potential for evil. So how are you learning to determine the time and the place, the appropriate season for which you do something?
Well, I've been learning by, if I do something bad, I've usually been getting in trouble, which is a good help. Another thing is, people will let you know if you don't want it, and there's always usually something bad that happens if you're not supposed to do it in that time or place. Most people know when the time or place is, they just ignore it, and or they take advantage of it. But I mean, some ways I've been learning is don't do that. You're gonna get in trouble. There's gonna be always because like you said, life is about balance. Whoa, life is about balance. There's always an opposite side to it. It's not always gonna be the good thing. You can't just do anything without getting in trouble. Someone's gonna have to pay for it. So you'll know whenever there's a negative effect to it. Am I learn? What do you mean? Are you asking am I learning? Oh, without people telling me it's wrong? Yes, I am really, because I see things in people's eyes, or if they don't like something, Yeah, subtle hints. And also, you know when it's wrong. Not to do that in that moment. And eventually you'll get it. You'll know there's something wrong with it. Not just thinking that if you do something, I'm going to get a spanking. You know what I'm saying?
Is that, and you learn to do this the more you go through life, but with every single action you have, and obviously there's times where you're not going to stop down and research it, but you verify through the lens of the Bible. You know what I mean? You regulate yourself through the Bible, how to live.
This one's for Kenny. Is there ever a situation where you could have been patient, but you chose not to?
No. No. All the time. A lot of the time when really just with Wyatt again. I don't want to bring up him like every single time you'll ask about patience. It typically happens over petty things, and sometimes I stir up the argument. Just yeah.
This is for each of you. Each one of you I know is going to have to face bullying in school. So how do you direct that energy?
Some ways I deal with it is I direct that energy is like you see me up there on the drums. I like hitting things, and also in football, I usually like act like it's either the bully or sometimes act like it's dad, and I go and rip their head off, you know.
I really just talk with my friends about it, like blow off some steam. Yeah.
Next.
Can we come back to me?
Give me a second. Think. Shut up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know. No, no, no. Yes, that's the bully. Should have seen him yesterday. He threw me on the floor and I hit a rock. Your turn, Kenny.
Thank you. So generally, if I started to get bullied, at first I'd probably be upset about it, not in a good mood, of course, because who would be? But later on, I'm sure that a thought would come into my head that would be like, try being nice, because I don't think anybody would like to be mean to a nice person. But, well, some people would, but not very often. And also, Malachi did say that there was a time and place for ripping off heads, so
I would just try and be blissfully ignorant.
Give a round of applause to these children. They did an amazing job. Thank y'all very much for the effort.